Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Ball and Crane podcast. I am super excited to bring you all the very first guest on the podcast today, Toddrick Gotcher. If you follow Texas Tech sports, you know that he is a basketball great. Played for Texas Tech back in 2011 to 2016, and he now plays basketball overseas. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast to talk about mental health and wellness and all things sports, including his experiences at Texas Tech and professionally. So super excited to bring you my interview with Toddrick Gotcher. Thanks for being on the podcast today, Toddrick.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about mental health, and this should be a good one today for sure.
I'm going to go back. So your time at Texas Tech, you were here from 2011 to 2016, and there were lots of coaching changes within that time period. What changed as far as the culture, like with your team, and the impact that it had on the court and off the court?
For sure. So for me, my story, it starts with Coach Chris Beard, actually. I committed. He was an assistant coach under Pat Knight at the time, and I committed under them. And as soon as I came to Tech, he got fired, or the whole coaching staff got fired. Billy Gillespie comes in. So that was my first really adult decision, and mentally coming into college and saying, okay, what to do now. And my main focus was committed to the university and not coaches. So that first year was rough. Obviously, a lot of things happened with that, and just at a time mentally, I questioned basketball. I questioned if I wanted to continue playing basketball because it was just a rough patch. A whole new coaching staff and new players, new teammates. And then my second year, another coach got fired. So it was just like, okay, now what is it? What's going on? Is it me? Is it Texas Tech, or what's going on? So at that point, after the second year, I almost left. No one knows this, but I almost left and went to South Florida, University of South Florida. And I never tell that story because I've been a Texas Tech diehard since I stepped on campus. So my father told me, you commit to the university and not coaches. So that's what made me stick it out. And mentally, going through that, my first 2 years in college, I didn't know what to do. I was not mentally strong at the time, and just trying to understand and process what's going on. And it was rough for me for sure. But my family and the guys I had, the teammates, kind of kept me level-headed. And now you see transfer every day. Every day there's a new transfer in, out.
No joke.
It's unbelievable nowadays. But then my third coach was Tubby Smith. And obviously for Texas Tech, it was a rough patch of basketball as well. So it wasn't just, it's a new coach and we're good. It's just another losing season, coming from high school, I come from winning programs. So it was great to 2016 to finally have a great winning season and turn it around, and it took off from there. So it was mentally, it was rough, but I stayed true to it, stayed true to my goals, and it panned out.
That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing, especially, the fact that nobody knew that you were considering transferring during all the different coaching changes. And, you're older teenager, maybe younger 20s coming into a university. And I feel like that says a lot, like what you said, committing to the university, not the coaches. The coaches are kind of here. It's a business. Hopefully they're here to grow their players and have a winning season. But it's hard. I imagine there's a lot of inconsistency and confusion that happens when you're going through a lot of changes in leadership. So I really respect the fact that you stuck around despite the adversity. I know Red Raider Nation appreciates you for it, and you got a pretty loyal fan base.
Yes, this is one of the most loyal fan bases around. Obviously, Texas Tech. Once you're at Texas Tech, usually your kids go, the family go. So I love this Texas. I love the fan base for sure.
Yeah. And you spoke on it a little bit, Toddrick, but talk about what promoted wellness on the court as well as off the court. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but it almost feels like a full-time job. You're going to school, you're playing basketball. Now you play basketball full-time. So what really promoted wellness on the court and off the court at Texas Tech?
So the academic advisors, we had a great staff that behind closed doors that no one even recognized, that took care of us tremendously. The managers, the just people surrounded by like that normal fans don't even see because they're on the sideline or in the fans watching, but they're rooting for us the same way. So while I was playing basketball on the court and obviously taking care of academics off the court, those people behind closed doors just took care of us and just really stood by us, even though they knew we were going through hard times with the coaching changes and just the not having our families here. Like I'm from Dallas, so it's
Yeah.
like my family was 5 hours away, so it was pretty tough to. Obviously, I can call, but just having someone to go to dinner to was simple enough, and really just took me to a whole nother level. So they got me into focusing on academics more. Obviously, staying true to your competition, but we were student athletes first and foremost, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm playing basketball overseas now, but being a student is what really got me into this place and putting my nose in the book, keeping my head down, and just focusing on things like that. So that's what's really kept me mentally prepared, mentally straight, and obviously growing up with a great family has kept me level-headed.
I think carrying that with you, beyond school, having a support system like that will take you far, and leaning into your support when
Mm-hmm.
you need it. Do you feel like, in your time now, looking back and how you see, especially with the NIL now, do you feel like mental health is talked about or promoted enough?
Now I do not think it is because mental health is very challenging, especially I saw it for me most especially when COVID kind of came around and everyone was isolated.
Sure.
So for me, currently I'm a 7-year pro overseas, and that's pretty much all. I'm always isolated from the people. It's a different culture, different food. So we're growing up in America. Obviously, when people don't go to Europe and understand what Europe is, it's a great life. It's very, the travel is amazing, but as athletes, you're isolated. You're going to practice and you're coming right home, and you have to. It's an 8-hour difference to your family, so it's
Yeah.
very. That's really challenged me mentally while going overseas. But I stayed in books, read books, puzzles. I wasn't the Netflix type of guy, so I love
Yeah.
to just. I wanted to go a different route because I saw a lot of guys in video games, Netflix. So I wanted to go a different path, and that really helped me out. So now today in college athletes and pro athletes, I don't think it's being talked about enough,
Yeah.
especially with the everyone leaving, like I said, transferring in and out. It's kind of hard to mentally when things get hard, everyone just leaves now. So it's kind of
Sure.
sad to see, but I wish it was talked about a lot more for sure.
Yeah. How do you think the league, even from the high school level to professional level, how do you think leadership, how do you think the fans, the players can talk about it and promote it more?
I would for sure say we just have to have that awareness as even as fans. Fans need to understand as well that it's not only about making a basket, scoring a goal, and things like that, because that's natural to an athlete. But everything they always say the game is 90% mental and 10% physical. So everything is mental. How you prepare, how you even when you eat is thinking about how you eat and the way,
Sure.
the right way, the wrong way. So we just have to spread more awareness. A lot of guys, like I said, during COVID in the NBA, the bubble. I mean, a
Hmm.
lot of guys couldn't even handle. I mean, they have millions of dollars and they struggle mentally with
Yeah.
just being isolated away from people and things like that. So we just have to spread the awareness, even at the high school level, just speaking out, showing, don't hide from it. Everyone's going through a struggle mentally. So just ask for help and try to spread the awareness as much as you can.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were adequately supported as a student athlete on campus when you were here?
Me, absolutely,
Yeah.
because like I said before, I kind of reached out to my resources. So a lot of student athletes, I would say they stay in their bubble, stay in their friends. usually their teammates, they just hang out together. But me, I was always the type to just go walk in the Kirby Holker's office. Hey, how you doing? Like reaching out, tell them how I feel, how walking into the head coach's office, which that is very big too. As a head coach, a lot of student athletes are scared to walk into the head coach's office to
Wow.
tell how they feel. So I was never scared of that, and I was always reaching out to my resources to get the best, to use my college ability to like spread it out and just use every resource I had to make sure I left out Texas Tech on top for sure.
Yeah. You and I know, I think there's still very much a stigma that's associated with mental health and sports. And I see it a lot with male athletes. There's a stigma
Mm-hmm.
about asking for help. And if you ask for help, then you're X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But I feel like the leaders that were around that lead our teams and that guide us, I feel like if they took more initiative, like you said, just talking about it, promoting resources, and just creating a space on the court, off the court, to support one another, I feel like there could be some pretty positive changes.
Oh, absolutely.
So talk about your time overseas. We've talked a little bit about Texas Tech, what your time looked like here. You've touched on it just a little bit, but what's your time look like overseas, and how do you think mental health is different, if at all, being an athlete professionally overseas versus when you were here?
For sure. So I'll go back to my Texas Tech days. Obviously, our minds were busy at Texas Tech. 6 a.m. weights, class at 8. We have class 8 to 12. Then we have lunch. Then we'll have a practice and study hall and dinner. So our days were full. So we didn't pretty much have time to really much think about what's next. We're always on the go. We're always doing something, traveling. So it was
Sure.
really good. We had every resource, food, free drinks, free Powerade, every resource you can think of as a student athlete, which is great for the NCAA that they finally, promoted and gave the student athletes whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But as soon as I went to my rookie year as a professional, I went from a big Division I at Texas Tech having every resource to now it's a restart. You're on your own. Treatment is on your own. You have to tape your own ankles. It's obviously a lot of people are not aware of how European basketball is, but
Yeah.
you pretty much unless you're at the big level, you have to take a restart, and you have to do everything on your own. You're isolated. You have your apartment and a car, and the friends you have to pretty much reach out to make. You have to just different, the food, the culture, the city. I mean, you can't just walk up to someone and say, hello, how are you doing? Because they may not speak your language. So
Sure.
so mentally going from the high of being in college athletics to almost the low and restarting your entire career, trying to make a name for yourself again, being a professional. It's really challenging, but
Yeah.
once you understand it and grind and know what it takes, it's a beautiful life, beautiful lifestyle. You get to travel and do what you love while
Yeah.
I'm in Europe. So it's a very, very beautiful thing. But at the beginning, the first 2 years were really rough. Not having my family with me, so it was a fun time. But now the lifestyle is great for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like a bit of a learning curve, like
Oh
adjusting
yeah.
when you got over there and really being intentional with the resources that you had and just kind of figuring it out and coming into your own. What do you feel like has been maybe the least helpful in your time playing basketball, just as an athlete in general? We've talked about what's been helpful, your means of support, resources that were made available, resources that you had to find on your own. But what are some things that maybe weren't helpful? Like if there's an athlete out there watching this, what would you maybe advise them to look out for, to be mindful of?
I would say just getting it like these days, getting into the social media world, as meaning like, of course, you have your social media. It's just pretty much your brand almost, having your social media. But I would say don't get into the hype. Looking to see what fans after a bad game, especially, or a good game. Like I would say, try to stay level headed as much as possible. When you
Yeah.
have a good game, obviously on social media, everyone is rah rah, hey, you're the best. Then as soon the following game you have a bad one, and it's like now everyone's talking bad about you. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest high and low for me in college. Was my biggest challenge because I was social media was pretty new to me during my time at Tech, but just trying to see what people are saying about you is that can mess you up mentally for sure, big time.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, if you're LeBron James or any other athlete, that I think that messes with athlete's head more than anything. Trying to stay in the social media world of trying to see what the good and bad about it. So just stay level headed, even when people talk bad and things like that.
Yeah.
You know who you are, know what you bring, know the work that you put in. So that's what helped me out mentally. Just sometimes I have to step away from social media, just focus on myself and just put in the work and keep my head in the books, and
Yeah.
that's it.
I imagine that takes a lot of discipline. I feel like, especially now, we're in this day and age where everybody's on social media. I think it was more
Mm-hmm.
prevalent with COVID. People are glued to their phones, wanting to keep up to
Yes.
date with everything and see what their friends are
Yes.
doing behind
Right.
closed doors and in their little bubble. And so I think you touch on a really good point, Toddrick, like the impact that people's words have on social media and being
Mm-hmm.
very mindful as an athlete, like seeing what people post and somehow trying to stay level headed through it. Cause yeah,
Yes.
you might have a bad game and then the next week you have a good game and people tend to switch
Oh, for
pretty
sure.
quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my biggest takeaway from college to pro, for sure.
Yeah. What would you tell athletes, I think specifically at the high school level who are coming in, looking at playing at the D1 level, as far as their mental health, what's something that you would share with them to keep in mind and be mindful of? And especially with the NIL, I think that's so new and it's such a big deal. It has a huge impact, I imagine, on
Mm-hmm.
some level with people's mental
Oh
health
yeah.
and the athletes' mental health. So what would you say to high school level athletes who are looking to play at the next level?
I would just say like the no. It sounds funny, but I would say enjoy your time in college. Um, for me, I hate when people say like, "Oh, college is gonna be the best time of your life," which it's an amazing period of your life, and
Sure.
hopefully, life after college is just as good. Like, I don't want college to only be the best time. So,
Yeah.
but now with the NIL deals, it's strictly business almost, and I would love for athletes, especially at the high school level, to really enjoy college. To sometimes, I know you have to study things like that, but enjoy it. Like go, not go out with friends, but like go watch a game. Go to if you play basketball, go to a football game. Go watch baseball, tennis, things like that, because it's really like the people that you meet are lifelong friends.
Sure.
Especially for me, the guys in college that I met versus my high school, I have more college friends that are lifelong friends than I had in high school because I grew out. I'm from Dallas, but I still stay in Lubbock, which is
Yeah.
I would never thought I would still be in Lubbock, but it's still like that's my home base for my family, and just having that those people around you is really good. So enjoy college, enjoy the lifestyle of college, going to class, enjoy getting a coffee from Starbucks and walking to class,
Yeah.
So these days I see they have scooters, like the little lime scooters. So
Yeah.
get on the scooter and go to class, like stuff like that. So I would really go to the
Yeah.
rec center, really rock climb, do different things, have avenues and use all of your resources for sure.
I appreciate that. When I'm working with people, we talk about like the basic means of survival, and I argue that connection and just socialization is one of those, right
Mm-hmm.
alongside food, water, and shelter. Like
Right,
we're
right.
bred to connect with people and have relationships and meet others. And I know COVID was a really difficult time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you speak really intentionally about it, like going out and just being around people, but making
Right.
connections because those
It's,
connections will probably be lifelong friends.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You're going to be coming back in the next couple of months for the basketball tournament. I think that was just
Mm-hmm.
announced recently. What are you the most excited about?
So I have two things. So yesterday I went to eat at a place called Ravon in Lubbock, and
Yeah.
I saw a guy. He was like, "Man, we're glad to have you back and playing in front of the fans." So for one, that's my number one biggest appreciation of the TBT tournament, especially hosting in Lubbock. I can go back and play in front of these fans again. That's going to be an all-time high for me, and I just love that about it. And
Love
second,
it.
just playing with a different generation of guys. Obviously, I didn't play with the guys that played in the Final Four. So, like, guys like Matt Mooney,
Yeah.
Tyler Edwards, David Moretti. So, just getting to be on the floor with those guys in the same uniform is just unbelievable. And I get to actually experience that. So, it's going to be a different generational. You got guys that played in the 2010s and the guys that played in 2015s and 20s.
Yeah.
So, just mixing those talents and seeing where it goes is it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. So those are my two favorite things.
We cannot wait to see you. I think it's going to be so much fun. And yeah, the fact that it's going to be in Lubbock, I know the fan base is super excited, and seeing familiar faces from several years ago up until, the last few years. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. So tell the fans, be ready, and we should have a lot of fun.
Will do. What do you think needs to change as far as the stigma? Again, like I mentioned it earlier, but in my work as a therapist, what I've seen, and maybe this fits for you, maybe it doesn't, but it feels like there's so much pressure to perform to a certain level, to do things a certain way. And I think that essentially kind of reinforces this stigma about mental health. What do you think needs to change? How do we change the narrative about it?
The number one thing, obviously, we're programmed, I guess you can say, to be tough. For men to be tough, to never cry, to always have your chest out and things like that. And that's always, I grew up the same way. I was built on toughness, and I brought it to my basketball game. I want to be the toughest guy on the floor.
Yeah.
But off the court, I've also learned. I had to learn this though. It wasn't naturally, but I had to learn that it's okay for men to cry. It's okay for men to have a heart to heart with a male, female, anyone you can be around with the resources. So to spread that around is like you have to see guys. I think like the coaches to be fragile sometimes.
Yeah.
It's okay to be fragile. We're not made of steel. We're not Superman. No one is Superman. When the guy you think that's the toughest, he's probably going home to his wife, to friends, and speaking about how to do things like this. And I learned it from just watching head coaches.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a coach at one point, so I was always watching how the coaches move, watching how they talk, watching what happens behind closed doors, and especially going to my AD, Kirby Holka, just understanding like what it takes to get to that level. Obviously, it takes toughness and things like that, skill, but also they know how to reach out to their resources, and when they need help, they ask for help.
Yeah.
So as males, females, don't be afraid to ask for help and just reach out, because there's so many people that want to help us, so many people that are feeling the same way that we're feeling. So if one comes out and say, hey, I need help with this, maybe someone would tag along and you go to maybe therapy or to the coach's office and just sit down and just talk, not about basketball, not about sports, just about life.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, talking about life and understanding what life is my biggest point that I've learned throughout the years, for sure.
I can really appreciate. I think there's a separation, and I don't know that all fans, people who are watching this, understand that outside of being an athlete, you're a human being. You're a dad,
Right.
your husband,
Right.
your friend, all of these things. So yes, this toughness that you talked about can show it on the court. You want to give it your all on the court, but also understanding life outside of that too. Like toughness looks a little bit different. And I think that's something people need to understand and respect, and they don't always.
Absolutely. And a quick story behind that. So I went to the LeBron James camp. He's my favorite player. So I went to the LeBron James camp when I was a junior in high school. And when I played against him, like, on the same floor between the four squares, or the rectangle, he was the toughest guy I've ever seen. The look in his eyes was just unbelievable. But as soon his kids and wife were on the sideline, as
Yeah.
soon as he walked off the floor, the whole demeanor just took a 180. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, so he is a normal guy. He is like you said, a father and a husband.
Yeah.
And he walked off the floor, gave a kiss to his wife, and I was like, man, that's having fun. It just took a complete 180, and I was shocked
Yeah.
because in high school watching guys on TV, you don't think of them as human beings. You think of them
Sure.
as athletes and multimillionaire guys that are Superman.
Yeah.
So seeing that up close and personal was one of the best things. And I saw it personally my senior year with Tubby Smith. He had practice. He was yelling at me like crazy. Like I had a bad practice, and he's
Yeah.
like, when coaches get under you, hey, you need to do this, yelling at me. As soon as we stepped off the floor, hey, you want to go golfing with me? I'm like,
Wow.
wait. I'm like,
What's
really?
happening?
But we went golfing. I was with him for 4 hours, and I mean, we didn't talk about basketball. It was about life and just enjoying being in nature and just talking. So even the guys higher up or who you think your role models, they're same position as you, no matter where you are in life.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, Toddrick. I think, people don't necessarily realize that when you're in the spotlight and there's so much pressure to perform as an athlete, recognizing there's life outside of that too. They're a human being. There's all these other different roles that they play. And so to be sensitive to it. I think the leadership, it kind of plays into the culture of it. I think describing how Tubby Smith was on the court, like being a coach and coaching you up and telling you what you need to work on and what you need to do better with. But then outside of that, like, hey, man to man, let's go play golf together. Let's go get a coffee. I think that's what it's about. That's great. Great insight.
Yes, it was confusing for me, but now I see growing out of it, it's amazing. So I love it.
Yeah. And I hope for the generations to come, it sounds like it starts really with leadership and then just understanding the pressures on the court and off the court. There's really these different dimensions that go to it, but just talking about it more, making this awareness about mental health, right?
For sure. That's the number one thing. So just the awareness and spreading it out somehow.
Toddrick, is there anything that we haven't talked about that's on your mind or anything that you want fans, people watching to know?
Yes. So one thing I would encourage people, especially for mental health, obviously I live in Europe 10 months out of the year and come back to America for 2 months. But I would really encourage everyone to go to Europe and watch how they really live. Like, for example, my first day I went to Greece my first year, and a guy was like, hey, let's go for coffee. Immediately, like I'm so living in America, I'm thinking we'll go to a Starbucks, get it to go, come home.
Sure.
And I went to get a coffee, and we were there for 5 hours, just sitting in the same spot.
Wow.
Talking about life, kind of people watching in a way, and just enjoying each other's company and talking about, hey, him trying to get to know me. So it's a slower paced life over there. Obviously, in America, we think about the money, how to move up, how to get to the next step. But in Europe, they're just relaxed. They take their time. So it's a slower paced life. So sometimes in America, I think I would encourage everyone to travel a little bit, see the different cultures, and they'll put a foundation when you come back to America to, wow, sometimes I do need to slow down, and it will help my mental health, and it will help the way I look at life. So that would be my biggest point, trying to spread awareness to everyone, is just to slow down and just enjoy life. Don't always be on the rush and bus and try to move up and things like that, but actually look at life and enjoy it.
I appreciate that. I think they know how to do it over there, whether they know it overtly or not.
Right.
Just slowing down a little bit. And I know, like you said, going to play at the next level, it was a bit of a transition, especially because it was a new country, and you've been in several different countries now playing basketball. But it's an adjustment, and it sounds like you've embraced it. And I so appreciate your openness and being transparent with mental health and what it's like as an athlete on the court, off the court. Great first guest.
Oh,
So
thank you.
appreciate it, Toddrick.
I'm very excited about this. So I hope this helps a lot of high school kids, college kids, pros, people in life,
Yeah.
whatever. I think it'll definitely help.
Love to have you back
Oh
at
yes,
some
of
point.
course, anytime.
And see you in a couple months at the basketball tournament. We're excited to see you play. Thanks so much again, Toddrick, for coming on. Hope to
Oh,
see you
thank
soon.
you. Thank you for having me, and see you at the TBT for sure.
Want to give a huge shout out to Toddrick Gotcher for being on the Ball and Crane podcast today. If you liked what you saw, enjoyed the interview with Toddrick Gotcher, like, subscribe, comment, all the things. Looking forward to coming back at you soon with another great guest on the Ball and Crane podcast. We'll see ya.